Let me begin by saying that I do not believe that anyone can rightly interpret dreams and visions, because, if they could, then that would diminish the Holy Spirit's role as our teacher. Know that dreams and visions are highly symbolic and can literally represent almost anything. That is what forces us to rely upon the Holy Spirit to reveal our interpretations to us, meaning that the Spirit does not teach us how to interpret our dreams and visions, but rather the Spirit teaches us how to receive our interpretations from Him, which from my experience has almost always been revealed to me in future dreams. Which leads me to say that out of the hundreds of thousands of dreams that I have had during my lifetime, that I have only come to know a very small handful of interpretations, being far less than 1% of my total dreams, and nearly all of those interpretations were with regard to repetitive dreams. Mindful of that, this video is meant to impart some of the things that I have learned through my experiences concerning dreams and visions. If you find this video interesting and informative, then please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. One night in a dream I heard these words: "Whenever you tell others what the Lord reveals to you, He will cause the opposite to come to pass in order to purge you of your prideful tendency." After all, just consider the time when Joseph told his family his two dreams about how they would one day bow down to him. Shortly after revealing his dreams to his family, the opposite came to pass when Joseph was sold into slavery. Granted, years later his two dreams were eventually fulfilled, but my point is that initially the opposite of his two dreams came to pass because the Lord had sought to purge him of his prideful desire to tell others what the Lord had said to him. Please never forget this next point. Whatever the Lord reveals to you, He expects for you to keep it as a secret between you and Him, and to only reveal that knowledge in due time as the Spirit leads you to, which will take a great deal of patience and experience on your part to discern. Along with that, the mighty Samson believed that the secret to his great strength rested in the fact that a razor had never cut his hair. But Samson was wrong. The secret to Samson's strength rested in his ability to maintain his secret, and once he spoke out his secret of his strength to Delilah, then the opposite of his great strength came to pass when he became a Philistine slave. And there it is. Your knowledge of whatever the Lord reveals to you is meant to later empower you in some way. And if you tell others what the Lord had revealed to you, then the Lord will cause the opposite to come to pass, by which to deprive you of that future power. With that foundation laid, let me give you a few examples of my experiences with dreams and visions, starting with junk cars. Beginning in 2002, I had a repetitive series of dreams in which I saw myself driving around town in junk cars, being a series of dreams that lasted for about 5 to 6 years. I had no idea what those junk car dreams meant because at that time I drove a really nice 1997 Chrysler LHS. After about 2 to 3 years of having this dream, the only thing that made sense to me was that the Lord wanted me to sell my LHS in order to literally buy a junk car and drive it around town, which I came to believe was a test to see if I would be willing and obedient to humble myself in that manner. So I finally did. For $750, I bought a rusted out 1987 Ford Tempo that was pure junk, and honestly wasn't even safe to drive. In a short period of time, I spent some $4,000 on brake work, new shocks, struts, muffler, and numerous other things, as well as having the transmission rebuilt just to make it safe enough to drive. With the worst part being, even after all of that, I kept having my driving around town in junk car dreams while being clueless as to what those dreams meant. After about 6 months, I donated that junk car to Goodwill and bought a much nicer car, and even after that, I kept having my driving around town in junk car dreams. If that wasn't bad enough, in time, my junk car dreams segued into riding around town on bicycles, which I wasn't about to do. And in turn, I became infuriated by my ignorance as to what this incredibly long series of dreams meant. Unexpectedly, one night in a different dream, I heard these words: "Junk cars are symbolic for the types of jobs you've been working, powerless to take you anywhere." After that interpretation was finally revealed to me, I never again had any more driving around town in junk car dreams. The next repetitive dream involved chewing gum. During those very same years that I had my driving around town in junk car dreams, I also had dreams in which I saw myself pulling out large wads of chewing gum out from between my teeth, which I thought odd because I never liked chewing gum. I really do not know for how many years I kept having my chewing gum dreams, but it had to be at least 3 to 4 years, and my interpretation was finally revealed to me in a different dream. Chewing gum was symbolic for sugar, because my body was producing way too much sugar due to my excessively large Mountain Dew habit. Whenever I quit drinking Mountain Dew and only drank water, my chewing gum dreams would cease, only to resume once more whenever I began to guzzle Mountain Dew again, and or eat ice cream or drink milkshakes. Another repetitive dream involved power lines. I graduated from college in 1986, and several years later I began to have a repetitive series of dreams in which I would fly at night like Superman through the sky. Whether I flew high or low, fast or slow, I was always powerful in my flight until a power line would suddenly appear before me. Whenever I tried to fly above the power line, taller power lines would appear, or if I tried to go around the power line, other power lines would appear as well until they finally boxed me in. Then suddenly my power lines would disappear and I could resume in flight once more. Because my power line dreams were so repetitive, I knew they had to mean something, though I had no idea what they meant, until one night my interpretation was finally revealed to me. At the time I was vice president in charge of sales at our family company, and those power lines were symbolic for the types of problems at work that I would encounter. When times were good, I could fly through the spiritual air of our company until my power lines of machine breakdowns, being short-staffed, or whatever else arose to slow me down appeared, only to have my power lines disappear when those issues were resolved, through which I could resume in flight once more. Most amusingly, one night I dreamt that my power lines would not disappear, and I had no choice but to deal with them, which caused me to wear a Faraday suit as I joyfully made my way across my power lines as if I were a gymnast who spun around on a seemingly never-ending series of parallel bars. The next dream is in regard to a ladder. Shortly after I quit my job in order to attend Bible college, I had a dream one night in which I saw myself standing upon a diving board that faced a large Olympic-sized swimming pool. Before me I saw a large silver ladder that floated upon the water in a straight line with my diving board. As I considered the ladder, I heard these words, "Do you know how to dive in?" I said, "I know how to dive deep and hold my breath underwater." Then I dove between the rungs of the ladder and held my breath as I swam underwater to the other side of the pool. Instinctively, I knew this dream was from the Lord, however, I had no idea what it meant. Most surprisingly, at the very next Sunday morning church service, I received my interpretation during praise and worship, being when the pastor asked us to open our hymnals to a certain page. Immediately, I received my interpretation when I saw the hymnals clef and bass lines running up the page like a ladder. The Lord wanted me to wholeheartedly dedicate myself to finally learning how to play the piano, not rising from my waters of practice until I had finally done so. Though I attempted to learn how to play the piano many times, I never did get to the point of actually playing it. I developed an understanding of how to play the piano, I just couldn't get my fingers disciplined to play with any real timing nor rhythm. Next is my failing to graduate from college dreams. I suppose the most common dream among college graduates is that of being back in college during your last semester of your senior year, only to discover that there was some class you never knew about, had never taken, and therefore would not be allowed to graduate. I too had that very same repetitive dream for many years. In time, it was revealed to me that there was something that I desired to do in life, some goal that I wanted to accomplish, and would not be allowed to graduate into that realm of life until I'd finally grown in either the knowledge and or talents by which to do so. Therein lies a great secret that many Christians do not understand. Contrary to the preaching and teaching of many, The Lord will not simply grant our desires to us, but rather we must first grow in the necessary aspects of grace by which to graduate our way into them. Spoiler alert: Jesus did not receive his bride until after he first graduated his way into her presence by becoming the groom at Calvary, meaning Jesus' time on earth was as one big classroom that had empowered him to eventually become the groom, being why we love him because he first loved us. Regarding visions, one time back in say 1995 or 96, I happened to be sitting at my desk in my office when I had an open vision and saw myself in a second-story office to our building as I feverishly traded stocks and commodities. I thought that vision odd simply because we had a single-story office, to which I thought, that's stupid. We can't afford to build, nor do we even have a need for a second story to our offices. In time, I came to understand that that was the Lord's way of revealing to me that he wanted me to step up into a higher realm of faith by finally growing in my desire to learn how to invest. Though somewhat amusingly, by the time that interpretation came to me, I had already quit the company and moved on. Granted, there are many other examples that I could give, but for the sake of simplicity and brevity, we'll leave it at this. Most importantly, please understand that out of the countless dreams that I have had throughout my life, that I have only come to understand a very small percentage of those interpretations, certainly well less than 1%. And I only know of those interpretations because they had finally been revealed to me in later dreams. One reason for this is because the language of man is literal, while the language of the spirit is figurative, symbolic. That is why dreams, visions, and many Bible passages have to be interpreted, because they had been given to us in the language of the Spirit in order to force us to rely upon the Spirit to teach us what our interpretations are. Once again, if we could figure these things out on our own, then we would have no need for the Spirit to be our teacher. In closing, please never forget that the Father has designed the matrix of life in such a way as to force us to learn from the many mistakes that we make in our own trial and error life experiences. And if you try to interpret your dreams and visions on your own, that you are sure to make a mistake, because you must learn how to train yourself to wait on the Spirit to reveal these things to you, which might take weeks, years, or even decades, because all things are as the Spirit wills.